Hey folks, as you know, I'm Troy, and today we're going to apply some vinyl to some wood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sign, and this is a piece of pine. I bought this at Lowe's. They have like this craft wood section kind of back in the lumber department, and they have all these pre-cut pieces that are 2-3 foot long by different widths and thicknesses that are really nice finished wood that can be used for different things. They have square pieces and flat pieces like this. This was actually 3 feet long by I think it was 5.5. It actually measures about 5.25 wide. It's not real thick. It's only about a little bit over a quarter inch thick, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. And it's good for crafting and little things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stain this and apply polyurethane and then put vinyl on it and make a sign. I took the liberty of going ahead and cutting this down. Like I said, it was about 36 inches long, and I cut it down to about 14.5 inches for my project that I already have laid out in Design Space. And I will put the link to this project in the video description down below in case you want to use it yourself to make the same thing or rearrange it or whatever. It's the love verse from Corinthians, 1 Corinthians of the Bible. And I'm actually making this for my wife for our 5th wedding anniversary. It's wood, so you're supposed to give a gift of wood, and we'll see how it turns out. And hopefully she doesn't see this video before our anniversary. I don't think she watches my videos because she gets enough of me as it is. But I'm going to move the camera around and we'll stain this and show you how this is done. Okay, to stain this, we're going to be using rust-oleum driftwood wood stain, so it'll give it a nice natural but slightly gray finish. This is an oil-based stain, and to apply it I'm just going to use some paper towels folded up. You can get a staining pad at Lowe's or Home Depot that will do a little bit better job, but for something like this, paper towels work fine. And so we're just going to rub it on. Like I said, I've already taken the liberty of cutting this down and sanding it. I just went over it with some 220 sandpaper real lightly to smooth the edges and the corners. And you just want to rub the stain on along with the grain and even it out. And this particular stain says that one coat will do it, so we'll see what it looks like after I get one coat on and it dries. It looks like it's going to cover it pretty well. You don't have to stain the back, that's kind of your option. Since that's the part that'll be hanging against the wall, I'm not going to stain it. You want to get the edges really good to make sure you don't get any runs along the edges. And then the ends of the wood where it's cut, you have to kind of dab it on so it'll soak in. So again, the ends, we'll just dab it on so that it soaks in. And make sure we get all the edges and don't leave any runs behind. Well, this says that it will dry in about an hour, so I'll probably leave it set for a couple hours just to make sure before I apply the polyurethane. The polyurethane process is a little bit more involved. I'll probably put a couple coats on it and use some steel wool on it to make sure it's nice and smooth, so I'll show you that process here in just a few minutes. And as you can see, we have a nice even color, natural driftwood color. So we'll let this dry and then we'll come back and finish it up here in just a few minutes. Okay, so we're going to put on our first coat of polyurethane, and I'm going to use this Minwax fast drying polyurethane. This is, like I said, this is an oil-based stain, so I'm going to use polyurethane. If it was like acrylic paint, I would probably use polyacrylic, or we also use, often use, well actually most of the time we use a spray we get at Hobby Lobby that's made by Treehouse, I think. That's a high gloss acrylic spray coating, and the smoother and shinier your surface is, the better vinyl is going to adhere to it. I'm going to use clear satin just because of the look I want. This is going to be indoors, so I'm not too worried about it, the vinyl coming off of it. But I'll put 2 coats on. The first coat we'll put on, and then we will let that dry. I'll probably just let it dry overnight and do the second coat tomorrow. And in between, I'll show you what I do with steel wool to smooth it out. Now, you don't want to shake this up because you don't want to create bubbles in your polyurethane. You don't want bubbles in your finish. Now, you want to use a like a good hair brush, hair-based brush. These are fairly inexpensive. This only costs like $1.50 or something like that at Lowe's. So the important things when you brush on the polyurethane is to brush nice and even, and don't go over it too much, and don't go too fast, because it will create bubbles if you do that. Now, the steel wool we'll use on it tomorrow will take those bubbles out, but we don't want to create any more than we have to. And we're just going to kind of brush it on like that. And you don't want to go back over it too much because it does start to get a little tacky within just a couple of minutes. And you don't want to go back over it once it starts to get tacky, or it will create grooves and marks in it and create more bubbles and things like that. A little piece of the brush came off there, so you want to make sure you inspect it a little bit and get those off of it. And I'll hold that up so you can see it has a nice wet coat on it. And then tomorrow I'll let this dry overnight, and tomorrow we'll come back. I'll show you how to do the steel wool, how to clean it up nice and smooth. Then we'll put a second coat on it, and we should have a good smooth finish after that. Now, I'm not too worried about the finish overall because a lot of this is going to be covered by vinyl, but I do want it as smooth as possible so that the vinyl will stick to it. So we'll let this dry overnight, like I said, and then tomorrow we'll put we'll steel wool on it and smooth it out, and then we will apply the second coat, and then we'll move on to the stage of applying the vinyl. Okay, so now we've let the polyurethane first coat dry for about 24 hours, and if I hold this up there, you can probably see all kinds of little tiny bumps in it. There we go, a little reflection, little bumps and things. Those are kind of like little air bubbles, maybe some dust that was on the wood. I think there's an eyelash there somewhere that got on it. So you're going to have some imperfections, and the way we get rid of those is with steel wool. Now, this is a very fine grade of steel wool. It's 4/0, so 4 zeros. A lot of people aren't familiar with the term aught meaning 0, but it's 0000, and they get it. It comes in different grades. So this is the finest you can get, I believe. And so what we're going to do is take this steel wool and just kind of go over it with some light pressure, and it will kind of just sand out those imperfections and remove things like these little air bubbles, and it will make it smooth. It will make it a little dull, so we're going to put on another coat after we do this. And you can really feel the difference in this after you go over it with the steel wool, and you'll feel that it was sticky and that it becomes a very smooth surface. It's extremely smooth after this process. So we'll go over it with the steel wool and remove all those little imperfections. Again, I'm not too worried about it because a lot of this is going to be covered up with vinyl in this case. And you generally want to sand and use steel wool in the direction of the grain, so you don't want to go across the grain. You want to go with the grain of the wood. And it doesn't take very long, just a little bit of pressure. As you can see, you'll have all these little steel wool things, little kind of dust left over, so you want to get rid of those as well. But after we're done, we'll just take kind of a damp paper towel and wipe it off. Make sure we get all those things off of it so that when we put another coat of polyurethane on it, it will be nice and smooth, and none of those little particles of steel wool will get caught in there. And if I move my fingers along it now, it's really smooth compared to the way it was. So since I wiped it off with a little bit of a damp paper towel, I'm going to let it sit for just a few minutes and dry before I put the other coat of polyurethane on it. Okay, so now I've applied the second coat of polyurethane to the sign, and like you saw in the previous part where I used the steel wool on it to kind of smooth it out, and then I took the brush, took the liberty to go ahead and do this. I didn't see any need to show that on video, but just one swipe across each strip with the brush to apply it so that it looked nice and wet. Again, you don't want to go over it and over it and keep brushing it, because it will get sticky, you'll get air bubbles in it, and you'll compound your problem. And as you can see, it comes out with a pretty nice, smooth, shiny finish. There's a couple little blemishes in there, but again, most of it's going to be covered by vinyl, so I'm not too worried about it. If I wanted to really give this a nice, even shine, what I would do is use sandpaper. You can get some sandpaper at Lowe's, like 1,000, 2,000 grit sandpaper, and you actually get it wet and wet sand it. And then here's a piece that I bought that's actually used a lot for auto body work. It's 3,000 grit sandpaper, and you get this wet. It's kind of like a spongy material, and you would sand this, and it would probably take just a little bit of the sheen off of it, the nice shiny part, but it would give it a nice even sheen. If you really wanted to finish it well, you could wet sand it with this and then go over it with a buffer with rubbing compound, but that's usually used more for like a tabletop or something like that. This I think is going to be fine because most of it's going to be covered by vinyl and it'll be broken up. So now we'll apply the vinyl to this sign. I already have my pieces cut out. I've plenty of videos out there on cutting the vinyl and weeding it, so I'm not going to bother to bore you with that. But I'll go ahead and show you how I apply it. And we'll start with the word love, which will be at the top. Again, I use Contact brand contact paper from Walmart for things that I do myself. I don't, if I'm making a decal to sell to somebody, I use main tape, and you can see another video on my channel under the vinyl crafting playlist that shows the different transfer tape that I use. But this Contact brand paper, I don't like this contact paper from Dollar Tree. It doesn't seem to do very well for me. And I am fortunate enough to be able to eyeball most of this stuff and get it on pretty straight without too much trouble. I know a lot of people struggle with that. Again, this piece of wood that I'm using is about 5.5 inches wide, about 14.5 inches long. So if you use the link in the project down below to make this yourself, and you want to duplicate this exactly, again, 5.5 wide, 14.5 long, and you can use my project and open it up and cut this out for yourself. You can use it to modify it, change it around however you want to do it yourself. Now we'll apply the larger part. Again, using the contact paper. I'm going to apply all this at one time so that it's all nice, even, and square. And if you'll notice, I'm using my plastic squeegee. These are very important when applying vinyl, in my opinion. I really like these. They make life a lot easier. I like it better than a lot of people use the scraper, this little scraper from Cricut. But in my opinion, these plastic, somewhat flexible and soft squeegees do a lot better job. As you see with the contact paper, it usually just peels right off. Sometimes you get little letters that stick behind, so you can go back and just rub them. They'll come off. But I just didn't rub them quite hard enough. And another little trick you can use is to turn it over and use the paper to peel away from the vinyl, like this. If you get some letters that want to stick to the backing, you can just kind of press them down a little bit and they'll come off. As long as you don't move it and you roll it back down, it'll go right back into place where it belongs. So I have a letter there that doesn't want to come off very well. So what I'll do is I'll take my X-Acto knife and we'll pick at it just a little. hold it down and get it to come off of there nicely. There's some more letters that doesn't want to let go. And this is why good transfer tape is important. Like I said, the contact paper like this, contact brand, not the magic cover from Dollar Tree. I didn't have a very good experience with that. Usually works pretty well. Sometimes the little dots for the eyes don't want to come off and things like that, so you just have to work it a little bit. This is a lot to do in one shot, so it is a little bit more tedious. Again, we have some letters not wanting to come loose, so I'll use my X-Acto knife and pick at them just a little to get them started. For some reason, this entire row just didn't want to let go. I'm not sure why, but you have to have the patience when you're weeding. Because if you don't, you'll ruin your project really easily. And these are, not real small letters, but they're kind of small. They're only, maybe 3/8 of an inch or so. Certainly less than a 1/2 inch tall, kind of thin. So that makes it a little bit harder sometimes. So we got one out of place there. We want to make sure I get that in the right spot before we apply it. One little dot over an eye there. Get that into place. So we got all that. Now I need to place this letter here. It's an S. For some reason, a lot of the S's wanted to come off. I'm not sure why. So what I'll do is hold that up and make sure it looks okay from the other side. It's a little bit crooked. There we go. So that looks good. Now we will apply this entire text in one swipe. It's meant to be a little crowded, so I'm going to move it right up there, right under the word love. Line it up. Smooth it out with our squeegee. Peel that back off. Looking pretty good so far. Now the colors I'm using here are very simply, it's Oracle 651 vinyl, and I'm using one called, it's actually called dark red, and the other that I'm using is gray, just plain gray. And Again, those are Oracle 651 colors, and that's the actual names. I stained this with some stain from Lowe's called driftwood from rust-oleum. And then I used just clear satin polyurethane. It's a little glossier than what I thought it was going to be. And if I wanted to dull it, I could with that sandpaper, like I said, but I kind of like the way it came out. So now we'll apply this. And the real key, again, I can't stress this enough, to your vinyl sticking to your wood is the surface. If your surface is clean, smooth, and shiny, you know, hard cured, vinyl will stick to it much better than if it's a matte surface or some of the ones that are, you know, the plastic buckets, things like that. If you're putting it on wood, if you paint it, if you put a polyurethane or an acrylic spray over it to make it shiny and solid, it will adhere better. That is my experience. And so I'll put this flourish on. I got this little flourish thing out of the Samantha font and kind of stretched it and adjusted it to the shape and size that I wanted it to fit and fill in this area that I'm putting it in. So I just wanted to just kind of fill this blank space here with this. And I know one question a lot of people are going to ask is, what am I going to put over it to seal the wood? And the answer is nothing. You don't need to put anything over it. I have, again, put the polyurethane on it. If this was going outdoors, I would have stained and polyurethane the back side as well. But this is going to be indoor. Because if you stain and seal the entire thing, that'll keep moisture from getting into the wood and causing the polyurethane to peel so quickly. If it's going outside, again, you still don't need to put anything over the vinyl as long as you prep your surface and do it properly, because the vinyl you know, has like a secure guarantee on it. It's permanent adhesive outdoor. They use it on automobiles, you know, all this stuff. And so if you're using Oracle 651 or another permanent type vinyl, you don't need or want to put anything over the outside of it. You know, the manufacturer doesn't recommend putting anything that's oil based over it or anything like that. It'll cause the edges to peel up before it's dry, you know, and all those kind of things. So this is the finished product. I'm going to have to figure out how to hang it. I'm either going to put a little picture hanger, or I may use a piece of twine to hang it to give it a little bit more primitive look or something, but I'll figure that part out. Don't need to bore you with that, and just wanted to share that with you. Again, this is a 5-year anniversary present for my wife. It's you know, something small, but it's wood, and which is the 5-year anniversary. Again, the link to the project with all this on it is down below. 5.5 inches wide by 14.5 inches tall for the piece of wood. This is a thin piece of pine that I bought at Lowe's back in that wood, kind of craft wood section back in the lumber department. So some good stuff back there that you can get real inexpensively, and this is just a small portion. It was like 3 feet long, so I can make at least one more of these and maybe use a scrap piece for something else if I want. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If my video has been helpful to you, please subscribe to my channel. And after you subscribe, be sure to click the little gear and check this box so that you'll receive an email notification when I upload a new video. You can also help support my channel by making a small donation on patreon.com/TroyYoung.